And a very warm welcome to you from vampire repellent spray to coffee enemas. The Hollywood actress Gwyneth Paltrow has been under fire recently for promoting alternative, usually expensive, health products. Could wellness be bad for you? This is Roundtable. Hello from me, David Foster. Myths on steroids. That is how the head of Britain's National Health Service has described the claims surrounding the kinds of wellness products being sold by the movie actress Gwyneth Paltrow. Her business, though, is said to be worth $250 million. So it can't all be wrong, can it?
By now, you've probably heard of Goop, the lifestyle brand set up by American actress, celebrity and businesswoman Gwyneth Paltrow. Famous for her alternative products, she also has a series on Netflix exploring wellness therapies, such as vampire facials, energy healing, and psychedelic drugs said to help with numerous physical and mental illnesses. Though every episode starts with a disclaimer that you should always consult your doctor, she's still been widely criticized by doctors and scientists for promoting practices and cures which have no scientific basis. And she's been called out for cultural appropriation, exploiting ancient Eastern practices for profit, say her critics. But Goop isn't the only brand capitalizing on this trend. According to the Global Wellness Institute, the global health and wellness industry is now worth $4.2 trillion. Advocates for wellness argue that traditional medicine has failed patients, particularly women and people of colour, whilst others point to structural problems like cuts to national healthcare budgets. So is wellness a doctrine of positivity, pushing society to adopt a more holistic approach to health? Or is it exploiting the gaps left by conventional medicine and becoming a dangerous, lucrative industry?
Or is it a con? Well, with me at the round table to discuss all of those issues, we have Pixie Turner, registered nutritionist, former wellness blogger. We'll ask her why she gave that up. We have Dr. Dimitrios Tsivrikos, consumer and business psychologist at University College London, who'll be looking into people's heads to say why we're doing this. We go to Berkeley in California to say hello to Dr. Cynthia Li, a doctor who's written about alternative treatments and the limitations of conventional Western medicine, has a very personal story to tell as well. And then we go to near Washington, D.C. to welcome Ophelia Yeung, Senior Research Fellow at the Global Wellness Institute. Welcome to you all. Ophelia, mentioned in that package, the Global Wellness Institute, saying that the wellness industry is worth $4.2 trillion, four times, I think, more than pharmaceutical industry. Why has it got, or why is it getting such a bad name?
I think that when we look at this figure, it's actually 4.5 trillion. It includes many different discrete industries. So, we have the whole fitness industry in there. We have healthy eating, nutrition, and we have spas, we have travel, and integrative medicine, and also beauty and personal care. So sometimes the press love to focus on some businesses, maybe making very unfounded claims. And so I think this is what's giving industry a bad name.
Okay, but we all know that just one rotten apple can spoil the entire collection of apples. So there's a problem here, isn't there?
There definitely is. And as I said, because that actually the wellness industry encompasses so many different sectors. They are regulated by through different agencies. Some of them could be regulated by FDA, or some of them are other consumer agencies or food agencies. So it is not, and then in some sectors like massage, it is regulated in the US by state. So it is a very fragmented regulatory standardization regime. So sometimes it's hard to figure out, what's real, what's
okay. Well, so we have to differentiate the snake oil salespeople from the authentic. I imagine in this program we'll probably be talking a little bit more about the bogus than the collection of gyms that you might find out there, because it's headline grabbing. But we'll cover both aspects. Cynthia, I wanted to come to you. You're a medical doctor. You had personal health issues which left you with chronic fatigue syndrome, among other things, fibromyalgia, which is a terrible aching in your body. But you found only by looking at the wellness industry could you sort yourself out. Am I right with that?
Yes, I wouldn't say only. So, just a little bit about my background. I'm trained in Western medicine, conventional Western medicine in the United States. And a few years after my training, I developed these debilitating complex conditions, which left me housebound. I had no answers in the paradigm that I had trained in, and in fact was really facing dismal statistics, right? Patients with these kinds of conditions generally don't heal. So the first thing I did was went back to basics. I went back to science and really looking at how do chronic diseases develop. So through my own journey, I was initially very skeptical. I was highly skeptical of quacks in unregulated healthcare industries. I also didn't know anything about the what was available.
So what changed your mind about this?
Well, nothing opens your mind like desperation. So I began looking at things from a scientist standpoint. What is potentially low risk, high potential gain, and things that were reasonably affordable as well. And so that led me to acupuncture. And I began not only finding that I fit into the paradigms of more holistic healing, but that there were ways that I could be treated by a practitioner. And then that was also how I began my own path of, healing is actually a personal endeavor as well.
Okay, so there are so many different ways of approaching this, and you found it best to sort of take each one individually. I think that led you to write the book, What Getting Sick Taught Me About Healing. Come back to you in a little while, if I may, but Pixie, I introduced you as a former wellness blogger. Does that mean you effectively resigned from the industry because you thought it was a con?
Well, yes. I had a very bad experience in the industry. I was very much duped by other people who pushed me in the direction, encouraged me in the direction of a lot of pseudoscience, especially on social media. And I joined that group of wellness bloggers that was very popular in the UK and joined them in promoting pseudoscience on social media as well. And then eventually I realized that what I was doing was really harmful both to myself and to other people. And so I resolved to actually get a qualification in nutrition and try and do better and use this platform that can be used for good or for such misinformation and try and actually use it to do something good with the world.
So what sort of things would you be telling people to do now that you are perhaps, now ashamed of?
I told people
I mentioned shame, maybe you're not ashamed, but you wouldn't do now, let me say.
No, I mean, I'm more angry than anything else. I told people to cut out all sorts of food groups. I told people that things like gluten is harmful for everybody because that's what I'd been led to believe. That is absolutely not true. I also said things like sugar is addictive, which scientifically is complete nonsense. I encouraged detoxes, which is a completely unscientific principle that makes no sense whatsoever on a scientific level. And I told people to eat various superfood powders because I was getting them for free, and actually they basically did absolutely nothing for me, but I was so convinced that they would help, that I convinced myself that these things were really making a big difference to my health, and in actual fact, they're just a complete waste of money.
Or are they perhaps doing something on the other side of it? Instead of just being not good for you, they're actually bad for you?
Well, it depends. So, for example, some people take spirulina powder and think that is a substitute for a B12 supplement, even though the type of B12 that you find in spirulina is usually an analog of vitamin B12, which means you don't actually get anything useful from it. And so people might end up B12 deficient if they think they're taking it for that reason. So it can do harm.
We're going to talk about how we differentiate it in just a moment, but Dimitrios, I want to get to you because you've waited patiently for a start. How have certain people got inside our heads here?
Yeah, I know, it's really interesting. So I think one of the key things that drive people is our sense of developing, of growing, of becoming better, stronger. And I think either someone will identify themselves as a patient or someone who generally has an interest in developing their health or developing who they are, they will always look for solutions to achieve that. So I think the wellness industry, the wellness sort of, group spoke to us in terms of, do you want to do better? Do you want to be a better version of yourself? Sort of, really tap into the key psychological motives that drive us from any particular background, any people from any particular background, any age, that actually want to become better. And I think tapping upon that level of, would you like to be better? We can help you with that with inexpensive ways, and at times cutting corners. We can do this for you.
Somebody's selling people dreams, unrealistic dreams. Is that what you're saying?
Very much so. I think a great deal of that with I do hope that we will actually have a debate about today, is there are more gurus out there than specialists. And I think for me, the word guru is just a non-trained professional that gives quite bogus advice.
Okay, let's throw this one out open. Ophelia, you first of all. How do you spot the goodies from the baddies?
I mean, I can only speak on a personal level. I've been working in the industry as an economist for the last 12 years. And for me, like I stick to very basic things that I hear. Like I do not go and try different diets. I just stay with healthy, non-processed food as much as possible. And I'm not vegetarian. And so I think there's a lot of personal choice in there. I mean, a lot of people who are, they want to take charge of their healthy lifestyle and not rely on doctors to get them well or keep them well, because doctors are not really keeping us well. We have to keep ourselves well through our own lifestyle. So, and then a lot of the Western medical tradition doesn't really, really recognize the mind-body connection, or those doctors don't really speak to it. So the people who are interested in bringing wellness into their lives, more of them are recognizing.
But this isn't so much
connection. This
isn't necessarily about health, this industry. It's about business, right?
I think the bigger message is really about health, and that is a reason that consumers are willing to part with so much of their money and try different things. And I think a lot of them are thinking they're shifting their healthcare budget into a budget of helping them prevent disease, manage stress, and having their own, making their own choices and having agency. So I think it would be very wrong to characterize it as this is a $4.5 trillion industry of duping people. People want to spend the money, and it's their choice, and it's definitely meeting a need.
Okay, we can all speak at any one time. I was just waiting till Ophelia had finished. And I suppose in a way it's a little bit like the art world, isn't it? It's what you decide is right for you isn't necessarily right for somebody else. And Cynthia, I'll come to you in just a moment, if I may, to talk about how you knew what was the right thing to do and the wrong thing to do. But you wanted to say something, Pixie.
Yeah, I think we need to acknowledge that the US system is very different to the UK. Here we have free healthcare, and so the idea that people are searching for cheap options is just absolutely not true. When people are going to wellness, they are switching from something that is a free service to something that they're paying a great deal of money for, because what wellness does really well is put a price tag on health and price people out of pursuing health, because they position it as something that is for the middle-class elite people. All these superfood powders, these crazy yoga retreats, these detox protocols, all these things cost a lot of money. And I think we also need to acknowledge that what drives people into these things...
But in all fairness, you're not necessarily getting that kind of level of treatment, which may be good. In some cases, you're not getting it if you stay in the National Health Service, are you?
I mean, it's not perfect,
stretched.
for sure. It is definitely not perfect, but I think we need to also acknowledge that we are substituting something that is free for then something we're spending a lot of money on, and not everybody has the privilege to be able to do that.
So you have to be very careful about this. And Dimitrios, pardon me for stopping it. This is where I wanted to come to you, Cynthia, and say, when you were going through your personal journey to get over these illnesses, which you'll tell us, I understand that you're feeling so much better now. How did you know what was right and what was wrong?
That's a tough question. I mean, so just a few comments I wanted to make is that based on what Pixie was saying, we're still health like a transaction. Right? It's really something that goes much deeper and transformational changes for what we need for healing. Now, one thing that I have trouble with is this lumping in of the term wellness industry. So when we're looking at wellness industry, we're also looking at personalized healthcare, integrative medicine, and functional medicine, which is what I practice now, right? My own journey led me to practice integrative functional medicine, which is looking at root causes of chronic disease and how do we address that from a much deeper systems level rather than sort of organ by organ, specialist by specialist.
Would you say, sorry to interrupt here, but this just occurs to me, would you say it's a little bit like if it's too good to be true, it probably isn't true? The weirder and the wackier it is, the less likely it is to do you good. Is that a rule of thumb, Cynthia?
I mean, my rule of thumb is that what's going to work for one person is very different than what's going to work for another person. So to say that, you know, one particular supplement or one particular mind-body practice is going to benefit one person is not a one-size-fits-all. So the problem with the science right now is that we're still looking at reductionist science models to measure outcomes for individuals and for populations.
I suppose is some of this, do you think, psychosomatic, or is that too,
I think
too glib to say that?
I think a great deal of that is you promising someone, sort of, you know, it's almost a placebo effect. You know, if you do that, you will feel a lot better. And to a degree, they can have a short-term benefit to us. You know, we're taking a special green pill that is made out of a botanical extract found in the Himalayas. Fantastic, that'll make you feel great for a week. And afterward, you will realize that actually doesn't work. And I think the whole component with our sort of industry is that indeed contemporary medicine, does it have to do better? We need more development, we need more research, absolutely. But when something cannot be measured, it's quite problematic. If I give you a scale about measuring your health, your overall health from 1 to 7, you'll be able to closely say to me, I'm a good 5, perhaps I might need to improve on X, Y, and Z. If I'll ask you how well you're feeling, what's your level of well-being, and what's your level of longevity and wellness, what sort of scale can you use? I'm feeling a 6, then that industry will say, we can make you feel a 7. What a 7 will look like compared to a 6? So it is something that you can measure, you can justify, and lack of regulation allow these people to take a perfectly 6 person who is perfectly healthy to say, we can make you a 7 and an 8, unnecessarily, with a number of expensive solutions that quite simply don't work.
I'll come to you in just a minute, because I know you've got lots to say, Pixie, but this is something I wanted to ask Ophelia here. Are we perhaps being, and I say we in general terms, those people that write about this quite a lot, are we being overly cynical when in fact what we're actually doing is looking at traditional medicinal methods and methods of well-being from older cultures, perhaps, put alongside scientific methods and poo-pooing them because we don't think they're up to date?
Well, I'm Chinese, so I definitely think there is a whole lot of science not catching up with some of the traditional methods, but the wellness industry should be able overall to take credit for pushing some of these back into the scientific realm. Because, for example, meditation, there's so many more studies on meditation, clinical studies, and to treat all kinds of conditions, PTSD, anxiety, depression. And I think the issue is, it is not easy to figure out what is the right, using sort of the conventional Western tradition of how to treat patients. What is the right dose of meditation and what kind of meditation for exactly what kind of condition and how it is administered? And we're still thinking in that framework when we look at scientific, using scientific evidence or using, sort of a Western medicine approach for using these modalities. So there's going to be some catching up, and meditation is an example. And yoga, definitely yoga has been around for thousands of years. Tai Chi has been around for at least 1,000 years or more. And there are more and more studies looking at how these practices are really helping people to...
Well, this is very interesting, is it? Because we've sort of flipped it round here, haven't we? And Pixie, you say whatever you want to say, but my question is going to be, are we in danger of throwing the baby out with the bathwater by saying, look, these things are wacky, they don't work, let's forget it's whatever you have rejected yourself, when in fact, if we weren't quite as cynical, we would be able to find the good in it?
Yes, but I'm concerned that if we do that, we then adopt the stuff that doesn't work too much, because that's what we're currently doing. We're all too ready to accept the whole bunch of everything without being discriminative about which bits are actually have scientific evidence or which bits actually work and which bits don't. And so I get what you're saying, but I think we are more in danger of doing the opposite. I think we're far more in danger of allowing all of these unregulated and potentially dangerous things to come to the table, things which are promoted as being helpful for our physical health, but end up then we prioritize our physical health in that sense at the detriment to our mental health, because we're so overly concerned and worried about how well we are that we're no longer well anymore.
Yeah. There's no one size fits all, though, is there, Dimitrios?
Absolutely not. But I think, with what Cynthia mentioned, there's nothing wrong with meditation. There's nothing wrong with...
Unless you do it just before you go to sleep, I found.
Yes.
And then you don't sleep.
No, because you think too much. And, all of that is great. And what Chinese medicine has actually taught us, that great lessons that we have to integrate within contemporary forms of medicine. However, the entire market is populated with a mindfulness shampoo or shower gel. With all due respect, a shower gel will not help you to become more mindful. And I think there's millions and millions of dollars or pounds being spent on such weird products that are actually promising people that get that shampoo or that mindfulness cream to make you feel younger and be better about yourself. And this is where the problem starts.
Yeah, I sort of mentioned at the beginning of the programme that it was a sort of a fad in some ways, which means it comes and it goes. Cynthia, I just was interested in an article I read in the London Guardian, where this writer went to a wellness event in town here and sort of said, look, I'm so glad it's almost over, this fad, and wrote, the beauty of the term wellness is that it encompasses almost everything and can cost almost anything. Is it something that we will get tired of as a consumer society? What do you think?
I think just particularly as a doctor, we need to separate out people who are sick and not getting their needs met through conventional medicine to those who are really trying to enhance their wellness. And those are very, very different populations. I do worry that those who are suffering the most, who are the sickest, are the ones who are most at risk for being exploited, right? These are the people who are going into debt, into personal debt, in trying to reclaim their health. So in that sense, I feel like mainstream medicine, at least in the United States, we're letting patients down. We need to begin to incorporate elements of wellness into mainstream medicine. Will this other fad element of wellness be over? I would like to see the fad element and exploitation element really begin to diminish.
Okay, and Ophelia, let me ask you that. Will that happen because people are just tired of it because it's a new craze, or will that happen because we need somebody to come in officialdom and say, sorry, you've gone too far?
I think this is where the press and the media has come in, and it is all this attention and even the wellness bashing and the cynicism. It's all very healthy. It keeps consumers, they're reading another narrative. Oh, am I being duped? And it also keeps the industry honest. So it is being, I think, self-regulated that way.
Pixie, is there any of this that you would still do?
I go to yoga, sure, because it's the 1 hour in the day when I'm away from my phone, and that's pretty healthy for me. But, I mean, for the rest of it, I think our guidelines about what is healthy eating have stayed pretty consistent for a long period of time for a reason. And all these weird products that these bloggers and wellness gurus come out with are really unnecessary additions on top of that.
So it's self-regulating, is what Ophelia seems to think, and therefore we will one day recognise it for what it is, whether it is good or it is bad.
I'm not so sure. I think as long as there is uncertainty, people will flock to pseudoscience, because pseudoscience thrives off of uncertainty.
Yeah, I think that's a good comment. Uncertainty is there. But I think it's also for us as consumers, we have to be cynical, still very skeptical about what the products are out there and they do. And again, to actually choose something that has a baseline of comparison. If we do that, what are the key signs for wellness or health or improvement that we're going to do? If there are key signs that we can measure, then yes, go for it and try it. But if the product sounds too good to be true, avoid it.
It probably is. Cynthia, just one quick one before we go. You are a medical doctor. Do you think more and more we are going to see these two types of treatment, these two means of getting to human wellness running side by side?
Well, before my personal journey took me into integrative and functional medicine, I was a public health doctor. And what I find missing from this conversation and the conversation globally are the social determinants of disease. So, for example, in this conversation, is what's driving the root driver of this incredible wellness industry, this anxiety that's coming about, right? Because there's increasing income disparities, there's violence, there's environmental destruction of habitat. There are all these existential anxieties, and as Ophelia had commented earlier, just that is this a means by which people have a little sense of agency in their own lives?
I think it's very much a question of whatever suits you. You were nodding in agreement to some of the things that were being said at the very end there. Thank you, Pixie. Thank you for coming on the programme. Dimitrios, also. Thank you for watching this edition of Roundtable. It is about wellness, a bigger issue than perhaps you imagine because it encompasses so much. Some of it good, some of it bad, and some of it, well, questionable. We'll leave you to make your own minds up. From me, David Foster, from the team, bye-bye for now.